Hello, American Dream Makers. This is Zena Krogadal, your host for today. And I do believe that the American dream belongs to all of us. And not only can you achieve it, but you can go beyond. My next guest today is definitely an American dream maker. She is not only living the American dream and has been successful in everything that she touches, but she's also out there helping others realize their American dream. And so Sharla Frost, she is an award-winning attorney. She is also an expert witness. She's a best-selling author, sought-out speaker. She is career-shaping coach and a fourth-generation cattle rancher and an ardent community supporter. So without further ado, we are bringing on Miss Sharla Frost. Hello, Sharla.
Hey, Zena. Hi, everybody.
How are you doing today?
I am good. It has been a Monday on a Wednesday, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm so glad that you were able to be on American Dream Makers because, my goodness, Sharla, you are like all over the place this last year, just going and doing things, and it's just awesome. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, give us a little background, because I'm sure everybody's curious as to fourth generation rancher.
Yes. I grew up in Frogville, Oklahoma. And like you said, I'm a fourth generation cattle rancher. But on one side of my family, I'm a fifth generation Frogvillian. On the other, I'm a fourth generation Frogvillian. We've always lived here in rural Oklahoma, which is where I am today. I split my time between here and Houston, where I practice law. But it's a fun way to live. And it is a much easier and more wholesome way to live than most city dwellers would ever believe.
So you split your time between Houston and Frogville. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
And how long of a commute is that? Is that like a full day? I mean, going from where you're at in Oklahoma to Houston?
If you drive, it's 6.5 hours. That unless you really speed, and then it can be like 6. But it's a 6.5 hour drive. Or we have a small plane and we fly out of the Hugo Stan Stamper Airport. Questionable use of government money, but I got to tell you, it's fabulous. And we fly into Houston, and that takes us roughly 3.5 hours door to door. So that makes it doable.
Okay. Yeah, that does make it doable. And you don't feel like the whole day's completely wiped out when right. 3.5 hours. Yeah. So you still practice and currently practice, but the majority of your career has been in the Houston area. Is that correct?
Well, I always practiced out of Houston. That's where my office was located. But I was a courtroom trial lawyer for most of my career. I gave that up just before the pandemic hit, which the timing could not have been better. But my trials were all over the United States. So I tried cases in New York and California and Chicago and rural Mississippi, kind of you name it. I've probably been there at least for an appearance. But the office was always located in Houston.
And tell us a little bit about the type of law that you practice.
I was a civil litigator, so I represented corporate defendants, mainly in mass tort cases. So I defended asbestos cases and silica cases and pharmaceutical cases and benzene cases, those types of things.
Wonderful. Wow, that's that's quite of knowledge that you've got packed in there in your head.
Oh, yeah. I can bore you to tears with the details of fibrogenic links and the relative carcinogenicity of different types of fibers. And I was an English major, okay? So that was quite a learning curve for me when I started doing that kind of work. What I currently do is settlement negotiations primarily, and I do some strategic work. I get calls from other lawyers to look at cases for them and tell them what I think. And that's really cool. That's been a lot of fun.
Wow, that does sound like quite a adventure of a life that you have been living, Sharla.
Not bad for a kid from Frogville.
Yeah.
I never complain. Every day is fabulous.
And that's, it brings to, what I'd love to really talk about too is, what has been the secret to your success? Because like you said, from when you referenced, being from Frogville, give us a little bit of an idea of how big or how small is Frogville and what is that like?
Yeah, Frogville is a ranching community. And more than a century ago, it was fairly well populated. It currently has roughly 200 people in a 5-mile area. It is very, very much a rural area. And I tell people that as a kid, we were 13 miles from a loaf of bread because there weren't any stores locally, and that's still true. Um, it's true rural America. My closest neighbor at the ranch is almost a quarter of a mile away on east and west, and a mile away north and south.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, so before we get into a little bit more, I actually want to play this video of you because I love this because I think it just really encompasses what you're doing now. So as we kind of transition into that discussion, I want to get this video on so that others can see and kind of get a little bit of an idea as to what you have been up to. And so I'm going to share this, and here we go.
Let me tell you a little bit about my learning experience, and I'll finish up by telling you who I am, because that's not really the important part. The important part is, let's talk about what I have done that has made me who I am. But another part of the book, and one of the points of the book, is that true love isn't necessarily romantic love. So what we find with friendship, because friendship is very important, is that friendship can give you the same kind of true love that a romantic love can. So you don't really have to spend all of your life looking for Prince Charming. Stops against the company. So we go do that, and then my partner and I go back to the office and lay off everyone who works for us, because we are what they call a captive law firm. We really had one client. And we had all these great people who worked for us, but we no longer had money. So the good news was we had paid them on Friday, so everybody had been paid. But as of Monday morning at 9 o'clock, we had no reasonable expectation of being able to pay them again. And I was chosen along with two of my colleagues, one from New York the first year, one from Denver the first year and the second year. The third year, it was me, the guy from Denver, and a pair of younger lawyers. So considering how many lawyers there are in the United States, that was a big deal. That was very exciting and very gratifying.
So good. That's so good. I love that. So from Frogville, it's definitely not from what you're describing, not the place where opportunity really knocks at your door very often.
I think that's fair. Uh, but to the title of your podcast, it is a place where you can find the American dream.
Yeah.
I mean, kids from the farm can go litigate in New York, but you have to work hard. That's really kind of the deal. You ask in sort of the intro, what was the key to success, and the key is having opportunities, taking those opportunities, and working as hard as you can possibly work to make the use of them. Because if you get the chance, you got to use it. Chances usually don't come along more than once.
That's a great, valid point that you make. That when those opportunities come, you need to just take it. And you're right. That's what the American dream is all about. Is that the underdog too can achieve the American dream, not just those who are positioned, from birth or whatever people think. But I honestly think that is the beauty of America, that you can work hard to achieve what you want to achieve. Those opportunities are not always offered in other countries and other places of where people live. But yet for Americans, we truly can go from rags to riches. We truly can go from small town to big city, and do those things, like you said, be in a courtroom. So for you, what were the steps that you had to take to go from Frogville? And I ask this because, Sharla, I have lived in some small towns, and maybe not as small as Frogville, but I did live in McAlester, Oklahoma for about a year. And what I found was that a lot of people don't want to leave the small town. They're very comfortable where they're at. The furthest they'll go is maybe Walmart. But they're really not interested in even traveling to Oklahoma City or Tulsa for even just a weekend getaway. They just really like to be in their vicinity. At least that's what it seemed like when I was there. And for me, I thought, well, that's really interesting. So, I'm thinking of all this. So as I'm asking this question, how did you from Frogville break from that?
Well, one, McAllister's the big city. So, we would go to McAllister occasionally for dinner. But I think that for many people in rural America, it's frightening to go elsewhere. I was a girl and I was smart. So I wanted to do something. And if I was going to do that, there really weren't a lot of options here. The unfortunate reality is that jobs are scarce. The professions are scarce. And I wanted to do something that was a little different, a little out of the box. One of my favorite girlfriends from first grade, because I went to a tiny little school, Fort Towson, Oklahoma public schools. I am a 12-year graduate of the Fort Towson public school system. And by the way, small public schools do not get the credit they deserve for education, but that's a topic for a different day. But my friend Kit told me I was bossy when I was 6 years old. And my view was, well, of course, somebody had to be. But I knew early that I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. I just didn't know what that was going to look like. And I was fortunate that in high school, I not only had great teachers, but my senior year, I had what I referred to as an old used up lawyer as my high school principal. And he was really terrific. He had practiced law, didn't really like it, decided to get a doctorate in education, and he liked to teach at small rural schools. And he loved the kids, but he was terrible at the politics. So he was a one-termer every school he went to. And I just got lucky. He was one term at my school my senior year. And the summer before school started, he had the secretary call to say that I had an appointment with the principal at 2:00 on a Wednesday. I'd never been to the principal's office in my life, certainly not during the summer. But when I got there, he had gone through all of the files for all of the kids, all 200 in the high school, by the way, for those of you who are wondering how big it is. And he was meeting with those that were juniors and seniors, and he wanted to know what we were going to do. And he asked me what I was going to do when I got out of high school, because he had looked at all my test scores. I had tested well. And I said, I am going to be a secretary. And he said, no, you're going to have a secretary. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be a secretary. So my favorite aunt was a legal secretary. And that was my vision of what women were likely to do. And he convinced me that what I really wanted to do was to go to law school, helped me apply for a scholarship. So I managed to go to college on an academic scholarship. I couldn't have gone on an athletic scholarship because I can't even spell sports. So for kids from these sorts of areas, your way out is usually either agriculture or athletics. And I wasn't good at any of those. So that was a perfect example of an opportunity that presented itself, and I took it. And I went from there to college, did well in college, got an academic scholarship to law school, did well in law school, and then went into the practice of law and worked hard at all of those junctures. But you don't get to do the kind of work I wanted to do in rural settings. So I didn't really have a lot of choice if I was going to do something of the type that I thought I was capable of. You have to get over being scared about traffic in the big city and just go for it. Close your eyes and jump.
Well, and look at you go. Thank goodness you got over that fear and that, oh my gosh, what's out there, what's on the other side, where the, I've heard about crazy city people. And you did it because there was obviously something inside of you that was really driving you. You knew, as I'm hearing you tell this story, you knew from a very early age that there was something more for you to do that was going to really impact others, and that you were very gifted in areas that other people weren't necessarily gifted. We're all gifted in different ways, and you had a gifting that you knew wasn't going to just stay, in Frogville. So kudos to you, Miss Sharla, for taking that courage, to having that courage and that brave step, because had you not done it, there's so many people who would not have benefited from you being this, bad ace attorney. Because that's a whole skill in itself, to be a litigator in a courtroom too. That, because not all attorneys end up doing that, and yet you had that opportunity to do it quite often. So I'd love to hear even just maybe just a snippet of what that must have felt like for you when you were like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this.
Well, when I went to law school, I attended Baylor Law School, and my cup for the day is my Baylor Law School cup, by the way, my ad for them. I thought I wanted to do courtroom work. I had been a college debater and just loved that. It was challenging. It made you think on your feet. I came from a family, we were not only fourth generation ranchers, which, by the way, was not nearly as financially lucrative as it sounds. There are King Ranch ranchers, and there's everybody else in the world who's working hard so they can make money to feed their cattle. We were in that category. But I liked that aspect of it. And so when I was looking at law schools, Baylor had a program for litigators. They train trial people. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I found that I really enjoyed it. I mean, law school is not fun. For those of you who are thinking about it, it's really a 3-year, very intensive grind. On the other hand, it's empowering. And I found that I really did like, and I had a talent for doing the courtroom presentation. I'm not afraid to stand in front of a crowd. You've seen me talk. See, you know that, and you need to be able to do that. But to your point, very few lawyers are trial lawyers. Most lawyers do transactional work or they work for business. There are a lot of different things, but very few of us actually go in the courtroom and talk with juries. And I was blessed to get the opportunity to do that. In the video clip, when I was talking about being chosen with the guy from Denver and so on, I was one of 3 lawyers in the entire country recognized for my prowess, as they put it, for defending asbestos cases. And I was able to win cases where we were in very bad jurisdictions. The cases are always heart-rending. I mean, they're terrible cases because you're dealing with personal tragedy and people who are either very, very sick or have died. And those are not for the faint of heart. But I was really lucky to get the opportunity to go and do that. Very few lawyers get the opportunity to do that, and even fewer of those of us who are women. So I had, again, great opportunities, and I was always available. If they called and said, we have a case on Monday in Port Gibson, Mississippi, which, by the way, I actually tried a case there, I packed my bags and I went. I didn't say that's inconvenient, because it usually was, but you take the opportunity and you take advantage of it. You go and do it.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool, Sharla. It's just yes, and I have seen you speak, and you're so eloquent, very comfortable in front of people, which I know it's because, I mean, you've had, 30 years experience. You're used to being in front of people, and not even just in front of people, you're used to just being, in a very high pressured in front of people. So we're not even talking about just somebody pays to come see you at an event. Like it's like, oh, I have to deliver this in a way that it's very convincing to represent my client to the best of my ability. So that adds a whole different pressure on top of it all. And you do it with such ease and poise, and prowess is, that's an interesting word that they use. But here's the thing, that's what I know of you and what I've seen. Now, of course, I haven't been in the courtroom with you to really see, what that dynamic looks like. But what I imagine, because what I've seen of you is that you are very, I'm trying to think of the word, you're very good at delivering your message in a very confident, stern, firm way, but not without being overly bearing with coming across. And I guess what I mean is that some people, they can be very boisterous and kind of in your face and really intense all the time, but you have this gentleness about you and this air about you that you're just a very confident, strong woman. And, so it's not like, oh my gosh, she's just overbearing or bossy or that sort of thing. You just are a woman who knows what needs to get done and how you're going to deliver things. And it comes across in a very gentle and even compassionate way. So you have really mastered, how you've presented. Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for being here. We're so glad you're here. Let us know if you have any questions for Miss Sharla here too. So. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you just my personal observation of how you just come across with such grace but yet deliver with such sternness, because sometimes that balance is hard. Sometimes we think, oh, if I'm too gentle, people are going to think I'm weak and they, be a doormat. And some people can come across that way, like that you can take advantage of them. And then, but if so, I have to be overbearing and strong so that nobody, steps all over me. But yet you have mastered being able to say, no, I'm a very kind-hearted, sweet person, compassionate, but you're not going to cross that line with me either.
Well, I appreciate that evaluation. I found years ago that you can have strength and confidence. I was actually in trial. I'll spare you a lot of war stories, but I was defending a really complicated bankruptcy transaction. Not my usual sort of thing, but that's what I was asked to do. $5 billion, been better for my career had my son won, but that's how those things go. It was commercial transactions, so somebody's right, somebody's wrong. But the opposing counsel, who was a guy from Boston, and very different than Southerners, but he was asking me about something, and I patted him on the shoulder and I said, "Sweetie, I'm sorry. That's not my area of responsibility, but I will put you in touch with the person who can answer your question." And his boss, his senior partner, whacked him across the top of the head, sort of like Gibbs on NCIS, and said, "She doesn't think you're sweet and she's not being nice to you." And I said, "Look, one, I'm from the South. I can call you sweetie if I want to. And second, I'm just trying to help. So I hear you, but I'm not being rude to people. And I've found that as long as you're straightforward and honest with people, they don't perceive it as weakness. And those who do perceive it as weakness, you can exploit that to the nth degree.
Yeah.
They want to see me as weak. Let them do it. I will take care of that every single time. I'll be prepared and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really admire you in that, Sharla. So when I grow up, I want to be just like you in that manner as well. But I will say, and being a woman as well, in the industry that you're in too, that because there's not a lot of women that were in your specialty either. So you're working among a lot of men who sometimes, and let's be honest that there are sometimes some men in certain generations really don't view women as that this is a place they should be. Why are you running around in a man's world? You should be at home cooking, or you should have gone to college to be a nurse, or you should have gone to college to be a teacher, if you were going to go. I mean, I'm saying this because I have run across some men in this generation, in that certain generation, that view it that way, because I myself sometimes have had to, even just in the real estate industry, which is kind of odd to me that, because there's a lot of women in real estate, but there are some guys that just, they come across. And I told my husband, I said, I must sound really young over the phone as well, because they really try to talk to me as if I don't know the real estate laws, as if I don't know the contract, as if I don't know and understand how this works. And as soon as they start to kind of give that, and I'm like you, I'll like, oh, well, actually, can you read that part for me that you're referring to? Because I actually don't see that there. So if you can show me, maybe we can, talk about this. And of course, it's not there, but so I imagine that was kind of what you were up against too. So how did you, the first time that may have happened to you, how did you handle that? I mean, what skills and what things that developed in you that made it to where you're like, nope, you're not going there with me?
Well, that's what I call the girl treatment. And I will say that I was fortunate in my legal career that most of the time I didn't face a lot of that. And I frankly faced less of that with older members of the community. I think people thought if I was crazy enough to be doing asbestos defense work, there was no telling what I might be willing to do if they crossed me. On the other hand, what I found over time was that people that I outperformed in my own age bracket were more of an issue. And that's a whole different thing. But one of the things about growing up in the country is, and not having brothers, it was just me and my sister, we had to learn how to do stuff. So if they were going to give me pushback, I remember very vividly being in a courtroom in Mississippi and having a long discussion with the judge, who was a little skeptical about the blonde chick from Houston who was showing up for a hearing in his court. But we had a long discussion about the feral pig infestation in rural America and how one goes about dealing with it. And he treated me very professionally. And I think he was a little surprised surprised that I knew something about those sorts of things. But what I found over time was that if I could demonstrate my competence, they got past the question of whether I was female or not. There are lots and lots of women in the legal profession. Law school classes have been 50% or more female since roughly 1978. Now, the problem is that the partnership ranks haven't reflected that, and it is difficult to keep women in the profession long term for a whole host of reasons, most of which I don't think are profession specific, but the National Association of Women Lawyers does ongoing tracking of the numbers of women and their place on the sort of the administrative food chain. So that's always an interesting issue. But in the little niche that I was in, there were very few of us who were women. But both my colleagues and the clients and the courts treated me well. So I didn't have a lot of complaints about that. And in those instances where I did have issues, I dealt with them by being competent and ready and not letting them push me back.
Wow. That's awesome. Way to go, Sharla.
Yeah,
Way to go.
if you're a farm girl, I vividly remember changing a tire down in the river bottoms because I'd had a flat and I was waiting and waiting. And that was the one day there was literally no traffic. So, and it was just before cell phones became really prevalent. And we still don't have good cell coverage down here. So I don't know that it would have mattered. But I finally thought, well, I know how to do that. And I was tightening that last lug bolt when somebody came by, rolled the window down. He still had a roll down window, leaned over and said, "Honey, you need any help?" And I was like, "Nope, I'm good."
That's
and
awesome.
But that's how I kind of approach life. If you need to do it, you need to do it. And I'm good.
Yeah.
Take care of what you need to take care of.
Absolutely. And I think there's something very attractive about that. It doesn't make you less feminine. It doesn't make you less of a woman that you know how to change a tire or change the oil or any of that. I think it's very important. In fact, Chris did the same thing with our daughter. He made sure she knew how to do the basics. Hey, I'm going to show you how to change the oil. I'm going to show you how to change the tire, especially before she headed off to college, because, between where she was living in college at and coming home, there's a lot of rural places where there's no cell phones. And we said, heaven forbid that you have to depend on somebody to show up to help you. Not only that, but it puts you in a very vulnerable position as a young woman, because
Right.
You don't know these days, it's not like back in the olden days at all, but you never know. And so it's like, no, you need to know how to have these basic things. And so it gave us peace of mind to know that our daughter, could do these very basic things as well. And so, yeah, Sharla, you definitely were trailblazer for sure. It sounds like in your community, among your peers. And so no wonder you've been award winning and have done so well, because, and I see that when you put your mind to something, you just go for it. Like there's no the if or what if or any of it. You're like, well, I'm doing this.
Pretty much. I think that any day that you don't learn something new is kind of a day lost. And we only have a certain number of days. So if there's something that I feel like I need to learn or I need to figure out how to do, I set about doing it. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah. As I say, and that's what I love about you, is that you are always learning and growing. I mean, that's how you and I met, was at a conference, at a business conference, and the masterminds that we belong to. You are always learning and growing because you're this high achiever, and you could have honestly, Sharla, just retired and just enjoyed the ranch, not have to go through all of this, but yet you choose to wake up every morning and push yourself to learn new skills, to learn things that you didn't know before. Like you're not walking around like I've accomplished it all, I've achieved it all, I know it all, because let's face it, some attorneys, kind of have that I know it all kind of thing. I'm done learning. Let me teach you.
Oh,
But
I've never met any of those.
Oh, no? Oh, okay. But yeah, you wake up and you do, and I watch you get uncomfortable. And I'm like, wow, this is so awesome to watch a woman like this to just say, I'm not afraid and I'm willing to learn from somebody else. I'm willing to get myself in an uncomfortable position and start learning. Oh, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start learning how to do all this, and it's not comfortable. Sharla, you truly amaze me. I'm so glad that you are on here, and I want to also talk about you being a best-selling author. You have written some books, and you are quite a writer. I'm going to put your website up here too because I want people to go to your website and also check this out. But it's amazing to me. You're so creative in your writing, so creative.
Well, yeah, I was an English major. There were a couple of reasons for that. One, I've always loved to read and write. On the other hand, I have no mathematical ability, so the prospect of being a math major or a business major was really kind of out of the question. But I was editor of the newspaper when I was in college, and that was probably my favorite job. I actually got offered a job by the Daily Oklahoman when I graduated from college. Unfortunately, I ran the numbers on what I could make as a reporter versus going to law school for free, and it's like, love to do it, but can't afford it. So that wasn't feasible for me. But I had always thought that I would like the opportunity to write. And once I retired, I wrote my first book, which was a business book. And it's about how you develop business and develop clients. And it's primarily focused on women lawyers. On the other hand, the most enthusiastic feedback I've gotten on it has been from men who are non-lawyers. So, go figure. But I also, after I wrote that book, the publisher I was working with sat me down and said, "What did you think about the process?" And I was like, it was kind of cool. It was harder than I thought. I thought it would be a lot easier because it was about stuff I knew and things I'd done. And well, it wasn't really that easy, but I enjoyed it. And he said, "Well, have you ever thought about writing children's books?" And I said, "No, I don't have children. Why would I write a children's book?" And he said, "It's the pandemic. It's the only thing that's selling." It's like, I think I'll write a children's book. So I wrote the first one, which is Frogville, Quest of a Frog. And then I wrote the second one, Frogville, Quest of a Princess, followed by Frogville, Quest of a Queen, and the most recent one, Frogville, Quest of a Sword. And in October, we'll be launching Frogville, Quest for a King. And I'm working on number 6, and I've plotted out number 7. The kids are getting back to Frogville at the end of number 7. So after I finish 7, I have a mystery story. I've always loved mystery stories, so I'm going to try my hand at a mystery story. But I enjoy the process. And a girlfriend of mine, my friend Patrice, says I have failed basic retirement, but I was never geared to sit on the porch and do nothing. So this has been fun for me.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's fantastic. And like I said, you are very creative, such an incredible writer. And what the skills that you have, I don't have. So I do have the mathematical skills. I do have the left brain kind of stuff. So I guess between you and me, maybe we can
full human. Yes.
Yeah.
Full brain. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's great. And it obviously must keep you very young because you've posted pictures of yourself of years ago. And I'm like, my gosh, Sharla does not age. She looks the same, which is fantastic, so with you staying so busy and obviously you're doing what you love to do, it doesn't stress you out either. So because I think if it stressed you out, you probably would be like, nope, don't need this.
Yeah, I will say that post-retirement, I did a flurry of things, some of which I have pruned a little bit. Because part of the process is figuring out what you do enjoy, what you do want to do, and identifying those things that really aren't your sweet spot. There are some things I'm just not as good at. And there are other people who are better at it. And so it's perfectly acceptable to me to identify those things and say, you are better at that than me. You do that, I'll do something else. I don't consider that failure. I consider that part of the process of learning and maturing. And I think that's something that people could do more of. Feeling like it is not a failure to identify something that just really isn't a fit for you and move on to something else. I analogize everything to shoes. When I was a trial lawyer, we had a huge team. We were a virtual team. We were from all sorts of different firms. And our team leader, Big Dog, the Mad Dog, gave us all dog names. My name was Shoe Dog because one of the things that's different for a female trial lawyer is that in the courtroom, you have to be very cognizant of what you wear and what your appearance is. And I know that not just because I think that's true, but I saw a lot of the jury research after cases, and they always commented about women and the way they were dressed. I was in trial with a fabulous woman lawyer when I was a baby lawyer, and we were in East Texas, and she was from the East Coast, and she didn't wear makeup. She wore the same suit every day with a different blouse. She didn't wear hose, and she wore the same shoes every day. And she was incredibly good technically. The jury research afterwards, because they interviewed the jurors, was brutal. And what they said about her was she didn't care enough about us, we the jury, to even bother to fix her face and change clothes. Wow. And those shoes, she wore the same shoes every day. And I really took that to heart because in the courtroom, my role was to reflect well on my client. And it really isn't about me. I mean, it is about me if I'm the trial lawyer, but from a psychology standpoint, I should do things that don't detract from my client. So when I traveled for trial, I took a whole suitcase full of shoes. I wore a different pair of shoes every day. So I was Shoe Dog. But I analogize things to shoes because if I buy a pair of shoes and they hurt my feet, I don't get mad at them. I just don't wear them anymore. I give them to somebody else and move on. And life is that same way. If it hurts your feet and it's not a fit, give it away and move on. There will be something else. Something else will fit you better.
Wow. That's such a great point. I'm so glad you shared that because as women, we absolutely can relate to shoes. In fact, as I've been, cleaning out the closets and getting rid of stuff, I found that I had 60 pairs of shoes that was probably not even the tip of it, but 60 pairs of shoes that I am giving away. They will no longer be a part of my wardrobe anymore. And I counted it. I'm like, good grief. How did I collect that many? And like I said, there's more in the closet, and I won't say how much more I still have. But
we're all shoe girls. I mean, it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. It is the nature of it. But what an incredible point that the jury made. You didn't even care enough,
right,
to show your best. Like you just thought, we were nobodies. Wow, that's an eye opener because many times, like for me, being so left brain, I pretty much had to really learn to refine myself too, because I would think that way too. Well, that's not the point. The point isn't how I look. The point is for the task to be done. Right. Or the point is to, not really stroke people's egos. The point is for me to just convey my, what I need done. And that doesn't go over very well. You learn these as you kind of go, that sometimes, when you think, oh, let's just get to business. But no, we're humans, and most humans don't want to just immediately get to business. They want to connect with you. Even in the courtroom, they want to feel that connection.
Well, and it was fascinating to me the comment about she didn't think enough of us to dress up, because men get away with that. They wear the same suit every day. They change their shirt. Maybe they change their tie. Maybe they don't. But that's a uniform that men can use. And that's a good example of the public's different perception of men versus women. And there's a whole body of study of courtroom dynamics and this and that, and some fabulous people who do research and talk about those things. But mine was more of an anecdotal, experiential insight. But it said something to me about how people perceive their own value in reflection from how they perceive you are treating them. So it is more about how they view how you're treating them than how you view how you're treating them. And it's something that you just really have to factor in, and not something I would have thought about without seeing that sort of research and interviews. But it's something else you factor in. If you're going to be in the courtroom, if you're in East Texas, you better look like that nice lady at church on Sunday.
Mm.
And if you don't own that dress, you better go buy that dress. And it won't necessarily affect the outcome, but it affects how they view your credibility, mm-hmm. and how they view your professionalism. And sometimes it's those little things around the edges that make a very big difference.
Wow. This sounds like this could be a book, another book in itself right here, because these are things that I think a lot, especially since you say it's 50% women lawyers, this would be very good resource for the women to know right off the bat. Hey, you better think about how you show up, not even in the courtroom, because if the jurors are saying this, how you show up for your clients, because I will tell you that the other thing that you stand out when I look at a professional woman, you wear lots of colors, lots of vibrant colors, where I've met other professional women and they seem to stick to very neutral black, browns, navy blues. They don't really wear bright colors for whatever reason that is. It's like, and again, it may be because they feel like I don't want to attract attention to me. I want to get down to business and show you, what my skills are. But this poses the question, okay, when you're showing up for your clients, what are they expecting? Do they want to see more? Because I'll be honest, I definitely, when I see a woman who is what I would say, I don't know if the word would be courageous enough. Maybe the word is courageous, because some women just are scared to wear colors. I mean, I've met women, they just don't want to wear colors. They're so afraid they might pick the wrong color, or it might look, whatever goes on in that psychology of the mind. But I definitely find that when I see a woman who is brave enough to put a pop of color, whether it's her shoes or her blouse or her blazer or whatever, I'm like, that's a confident woman right there.
Well, a couple of other war stories. I was in a courtroom in Illinois with someone I didn't know very well. And I had on a brilliant pink suit. It's one of my favorites, actually. And the lady leaned over to me and she said, I don't think you know, but we don't wear color here. And I said, that's okay. I'm not from here. Because, and that was intentional, frankly, on my part. I was parachute girl. I didn't do case workup by and large for the last 15, almost 20 years of my career. I was the person who got called literally on a Friday to show up for a Monday trial. So I had to be quick on my feet. I had to absorb a lot. And I needed to have some control of the courtroom. And I could stand out if people noticed me. You have to balance some of that stuff. I couldn't wear Britney Spears clothing, but I could get away with some color, particularly because I was from the South, and that does make a difference. It's both good and bad. And I was in a courtroom once in New York, and my client leaned over to me at the break, and he said, I looked up there, and I'm sitting in the back. And up at the front, there's this sea of lawyers. I see all of their backs. They look like they're going to a funeral. And there you are in the middle. And I thought, yep, that's my lawyer wearing an orange suit. Yep, that's my girl. But there are reasons to do that strategically. And you have to think about it. It can't be just, that's the way I feel today. It's one of those strategy issues. And I do wear a lot of color. If I'm meeting with corporate clients who don't know me, I'd probably wear a more subdued suit with a little bit of a color, but it really depends on the setting. Mm-hmm. And again, something men don't have to think about. And you mentioned I could train people on that. I've done some training on that with young lawyers, and they always fight me on it. It's like, no, that's not fair, and I'm not going to do that. It's like, well, it's really not about you. Yeah. It's about that juror who said you didn't think enough about them to change your shoes and wear some makeup. Is that fair? No. That woman was an amazing lawyer. I learned so much from her, separate and apart from the make sure you do your makeup and wear different shoes. She was technically one of the best I have ever seen at cross-examination. And that was lost on the people who didn't feel she respected them. So in this society where everyone's worried about being disrespected these days, those little things make a difference. But you have to be strategic about it. And I love my red suits. I look better in red than I do in black.
You look incredible in red. It is definitely your color for sure. And the hot pink. So
yeah, that hot pink suit was my favorite. I was really sorry when I outweighed it and it had to live with somebody else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that you bring up this point. And yeah, I definitely see a book coming out or something on this, Sharla, because I think that's a well-needed thing, because those are things we don't think about. We think about fashion as just that every day, you're going to the dinner or you're going to a social event, but you don't really think about it in the business world, how even that we have to really be very strategic and intentional and know your audience. I love that you say that. Know the area that you're going to, know your jurors, because a juror in the South is going to be different than a juror in New York City or in, Nebraska or whatever, So, yeah.
I describe it as costuming for a play. And that's true regardless of where you are. But to your point, geographically, things are significantly different. I was in a trial in Seattle, and the locals laughed at me when I said, "Can I wear a pantsuit?" There was like, that's the dumbest question I've heard lately. Of course you can wear a pantsuit. Why would you even ask that? I was like, well, I was in Mississippi last week, and they told me to make sure I wore a dress instead of a skirt suit, because it mattered to my jury. So I always asked those questions. But those are the things you learn along the way. It goes back to, how do you take advantage of the opportunity? You get the opportunity and you figure out how to maximize it. Just getting the opportunity isn't enough. You got to do your research. You got to think about it. It's not accidental when you show up.
Yeah.
Life is not accidental.
That is very true. Life is not accidental. I like that, because there's so much truth in that. Sharla, this time has just gone by so fast, because you're always so interesting to talk to, have a conversation. And I want to make sure that those that are viewing this, whether you're on the replay or live right now, definitely go to sharlafrost.com and check out Sharla. She has her books on there, so you can even, check out her books. And I recommend you get copies of all of her books. And then also, if you want to book her as a speaker, she is phenomenal. She will absolutely knock it out of the park for your event. And as you can see, she's a very knowledgeable woman. She's got so much wisdom and knowledge, because she is constantly learning and applying. So this is your gal. If you're looking for a great power speaker, Sharla Frost is the one. So sharlafrost.com. So as we wind this up, Charlotte, is there anything else you'd like to leave with us? Because you are helping other people achieve the American dream as well, because you're doing some coaching. So leave us with another nugget. Like, I'm just hungry for more nuggets, but I would probably only have time for one more nugget. So what is it?
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me on today and for being so kind in your comments. You live inside your skin, so I don't see myself as anything particularly unusual or unique. So I appreciate all your comments. When I work with people, one of the things that I tell them is that they have to be honest with themselves. You know that you're a left brain. I know that I'm a right brain, although I had to impersonate when I was a trial lawyer. But you have to be honest with yourself. Figure out what you're good at, and then figure out how you're going to use those skills to achieve what your goal is. And if you don't have a goal, that's your first problem. You got to have a goal. And I also tell people that there's something magical about writing them down on paper. I tell my females that what you really ought to do is take a hot bath, have a nice glass of wine, and think about what you want to do, and then get up and write those things down so you can start working on them. Because you need to set goals and you need to make realistic evaluations of what you're good at. I could never be a math person. I don't have that skill. I could never be an athlete. I have no athletic ability. So if I wanted to be an Olympian, like some of the people we've been watching this week, that wouldn't be a realistic goal. But if you will be honest with yourself and then take legitimate steps towards meeting those goals, the world's your oyster. You can have that American dream. You can have any dream you want.
Oh, beautifully said, Charlotte. Beautifully said, and absolutely just love this conversation. And yeah, so next time I see you, I'm definitely gonna really pack all. Now I can justify packing all my shoes. So because I've been trying to dwindle it down, like try to pack light so we don't have to check in suitcases or whatever, or check two. But you bring up a very good point that, I probably shouldn't show up to these business events in the same shoes. And I need to make sure that I go ahead and keep it. So I'm going to let Chris know that I just found out that I can do these things and it's actually beneficial.
Yes. Protective coloring is what we call it.
There you go. There you go. So I appreciate that reinforcements from you that, like, well, Sharla said.
I suspect that there are lots of people who hate to hear Sharla say.
Oh, that's okay. I love to hear it. So thank you again for taking time to being here. We absolutely, Chris and I just adore you, and Skip, and you guys are just wonderful, wonderful people. So thank you so much. So grateful that you're in our lives, and I'm grateful that I get to call you a friend. And boy, you're just amazing. So many blessings to you, Miss Sharla. So I will say goodbye for now, but of course, it's not going to be goodbye for a very long time, because I want to make sure we continue to stay in contact much more frequently. So
absolutely. And the same to you, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, you guys, for joining in for American Dream Makers. What an incredible episode, right? So if you watch this on the replay, please be sure to share it out. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, American Dream Makers. Also find me on Facebook. Love to connect with you. And I'd love to hear how you're living the American dream and helping others to achieve it as well. So until later, I will say goodbye for now. This is Zena Krogadal, and we will see you next time.